Thank you very much, Khadija. I'm delighted to be here today. I'm delighted to commit to the declaration developed by the steering group. As Khadija just said, I joined the Scottish Funding Council about 5 months ago. So I joined in the early days of lockdown. And literally a taxi appeared at my door with my new laptop and my phone. And those initial days were quite tough. And then I happened to have my first meeting with Khadija and her colleagues. And I have to say, it was one of the best meetings in the past 5 months. The energy in the Zoom, the commitment and the passion and just the sheer common sense. And I have to admit as well, I did come away looking at Khadija's biography and thought, what have I done with my life? Because of all her achievements. But it was absolutely wonderful. And what I really liked about it was action. So in other words, it wasn't just, okay, we need to empower staff and students to have confident conversations about race and racism. It was, and how will we do that? We will have a toolkit, we will have resources, we will make sure we monitor and so on. There's a real practical edge to it. But also when we were chatting, it became clear that we shared some passions. And one was the lived experience voice in policy making, which is something I believe very, very strongly about. And in fact, some of you will remember the saying, nothing for us is without us, of the Poverty Truth Commission. And that's something still holding true today. And also the second thing that came across, I think, is that we both firmly believe in a diverse workforce. And all the evidence is that high-performing teams and workforces are diverse ones. So I'm delighted to be here today and actually learn more today. I've been 5 months in the Funding Council. Driving towards equality should be at the heart of further and higher education in Scotland. However, as we've already heard this morning, last year's report from the Equality and Human Rights Commission showed there's still a long way to go. I think that report challenged any feelings of complacency that might have existed in respect to racism on campuses, because it revealed that racial harassment is a common occurrence for many students and staff. And and Khadija has talked about that. If you read the report, and especially reading the words of those who have suffered harassment, it really, makes you question a number of things. There are a number of quotes, and I'm just going to share them with you. One quote: the team would invite everyone to go for coffee breaks or lunch, and even if I was seated with them, they would ignore me and simply make sure I was excluded. That's a member of staff. From a student: nicknames have to be adopted by lecturers for minority students for whom their names are deemed too difficult. Often this takes place initially when the lecturer screws their face up upon seeing an ethnic name on the register. The gap between where we are and where we should be becomes clear when the Commissioner states in her introduction that we all have a responsibility to protect students and staff from feeling unsafe, unwelcome and inferior. For the Scottish Funding Council, I'd add to that the responsibility that comes from our commitment to fair access to further and higher education. In our strategic framework, we say very clearly that we want people to be able to meet their potential regardless of their background. We also recognise that students and researchers coming to Scotland from other parts of the world bring with them such a rich cultural and intellectual diversity that makes our colleges and universities and our society much richer. So the gap between our ideals and the realities described in the EHRC report is what gives urgency to our current actions in respect to racism. And as an organisation and as a group of individuals, the Scottish Funding Council wants to take its place in the stance against racism. We're a funding body with a remit to make a positive impact on further and higher education in Scotland, so our stance has to include investment and action. And we recognise that we could do more to ensure our focus on action, and that is why in March 2019 we began the process of developing a strategic alliance with the EHRC. And as a result, we became the first public body in Great Britain to enter into a memorandum of understanding that is designed to ensure our focus is on change rather than process. And our recent analysis of the data we hold and the findings of the EHRC inquiry told us that there's still much more to do to ensure equality for staff and for students. And that's why we've worked with members of the Scottish Race Equality Network and Equality and Diversity representatives across the college and university sectors and the team at Advance HE to refocus the National Equality Action Plan that Advance HE deliver on our behalf. So as a result, we've now got a number of streams of work in place that are focused on measurable impact for race equality. In addition, we recognise that this work needed the direction and involvement of staff and students who were able to bring professional expertise relating to learning and communications and who could offer diversity of thought. which is crucial. Diversity of thought, challenge and insight from their own lived experience, and that's why we asked Advanced HE to work with colleges and universities to set up the steering group. Internally in SFC, we have been giving a renewed focus to our impact assessment process, but we know we've had much more to do, specifically around involvement. But our analysis of ethnicity data and research exploring the experiences of people of different ethnicities has led to changes in policy and practice. One example would be the measurements we put in place to assess the impact of the mental health counselling funding that we provided to colleges and universities earlier this year, ensuring that the funding is used to provide provision that meets the needs of students who are experiencing mental health trauma as a result of racism. I'm going to conclude shortly because I think I'm about to go over my time, and I'm going to hand over to Craig. But I just wanted to say that, you know, we have a lot to do. Equality is central to the legislation that directs the work of SFC. And by attempting to get provision right for everyone, I think at times we have not had the focus that we should have had on the impact of race and racism in our work. And I'm so delighted we've got a steering group. I'm delighted we've got the webinar here today. I've only been at SFC for 5 months, as I say, but as I say, you can be assured of our commitment. We have a review of higher and further education underway at the moment. We are extremely keen it's an inclusive process and that it goes far beyond just a tick box exercise of an EQIA assessment and just that we've done that. So that's for another day perhaps, but just be rest assured that we are working with colleagues to think about how do we ensure going forward in our year-long review that we are inclusive. So I'm going to hand over to Craig, who's going to continue to give his thoughts, and then Dr. Paul Little will also speak.